book is back, and so is the winning. On today's episode of Locked On Suns, we break down the dominant home win over the Minnesota Timberwolves, led by Devin Booker. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 7 seasons, a writer at Suns.com, and the host of the Just Basketball Show, wherever you get your podcast. A big thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen. Happy Wednesday night, Thursday edition of the show, a winning edition of the show. If you have not already, hit follow or subscribe wherever you're finding us. We're free and available everywhere, including YouTube. If you hit that button, you will get a show every single Monday through Friday in your feed. So become an everydayer. Get locked onto the Phoenix Suns right along with me, your host, each and every Monday through Friday from now through the end of the season. Today's show brought to you by our wonderful sponsors, which I will get to momentarily. A huge win for the Phoenix Suns is really the most important thing today. Gametime is the sponsor of the show. Download Gametime, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase of any ticket that you could possibly need. Starting with the moment of the game, as we always do. 3-minute and 58-second mark of the second quarter to close out the half. The final 4 minutes of the first half for the Phoenix Suns. Vintage, classic, iconic Devin Booker, Kevin Durant combo run. First, point your attention to the show description, if you don't mind, where you can find a TikTok account for this show where I will be providing instantaneous after the buzzer game reaction videos, as well as any stats or news that I come across, and the Locked On Suns Insider Text Alert campaign sign up down below. Insider subscribers already saw some of my thoughts throughout this game. A breakdown of Bradley Beal's debut last week, a breakdown of Devin Booker's return coming this week, exclusive video content, observations from game days, and reactions to every single bit of Suns news and rumors you could ask for. More on that later. But let's get to this moment of the game. Actually, a teensy bit before that timeout, we had 4:04 mark of the game. Durant gets an and one dunk in which Jaden McDaniels fouls him. He fakes a empty side double drag, which was a common way that the Suns were getting their best players downhill with the ball going middle tonight. Durant fakes that dribble toward the center of the court, goes baseline, gets the dunk and one. And at that moment, the score goes from 60 to 46. A nice lead, but certainly within reach. That and one takes it to 63-46. Devin Booker then checks in. And from that moment on, the Suns got every single bucket either scored or assisted by Durant or Booker. So if you're keeping track, from the Durant and one through the end of the half, the Suns went on a 16-7 run that increased their lead again from just 14 to suddenly 22. And maybe those numbers don't fully add up. That's my bad. But you get me. You had a Devin Booker assist on a Josh Okogie 3 in the corner. You had a double try for Grayson Allen in the corner where he got the initial 3. Nurkic got an offensive board. Durant kicked it back to Allen, and he got there. You had another offensive rebound extended possession where Eubanks had his dunk blocked, I guess, by Anthony Edwards, is what it says in the play-by-play. I can't remember it necessarily being him. It was a kind of a crowd at the basket, but Booker gets the offensive rebound, gets it back to Eubanks on another lob dunk, and Eubanks makes that one. And then a drop pass on the pick and roll, in which is a play the Suns were finding early and often and consistently all night against. It was one of the variety of ways that they were punishing Minnesota's drop defense. You know, the first score of the game was Booker taking a pull-up three. That's one way to punish a drop defense, which is what Rudy Gobert tends to play, although not all the time. And then those drop passes in the short roll to the big man are another way. And that's one of the reasons that the Suns pivoted the way that they did at the center spot, both signing Eubanks and then, of course, making the DeAndre Ayton for Yusuf Nurkic swap that they made. And then to close out the half, you had a Devin Booker three, and then what could have been, frankly, another Devin Booker three at the very end of the half that he passed up and then ended up turning over. And that was when Booker and Durant hugged, and Book kind of, laughed at himself a little bit. But honestly, that embrace at the end of the half could have been just a job well done, pat on the back for one another. Because again, they put this game out of reach, and that is 16 straight points over the course of 4 minutes that were all scored or assisted by Durant or Booker. That's the kind of stuff that this team is going to be capable of when even just these two are healthy. We'll talk about Bradley Beal, who did not appear in this game, but 31 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 11 of 15 from the field, 7 of 7 from the free throw line, and just 2 turnovers for Kevin Durant. I mean, that is about as good of a stat line as you will ever see in an NBA game from an efficiency and mistake limiting standpoint. And Devin Booker, equally great, 31, 4, and 5 on 12 of 22 shooting, 5 of 5 from the free throw line, 2 assists for him. You have 2 guys go for 30 with 5+ assists, shooting better than 50% from the field each, you're going to win. When they can pour it on in such a way that the opposing team doesn't catch a break, you just go from likely to win to just about unguardable. These guys, I mean, it wasn't even a lot of transition scoring or isolation or the two of them running a pick and roll and Booker putting Towns on skates or Gobert out in space or anything like that. They ran some smart stuff, early in the game. Towns was guarding Gordon, and they were able to exploit that a little bit. And, I mentioned some of the ways that they were manipulating Gobert in the drop coverage. But this was all in the flow. This was the same bread and butter offense that they've been running dating back to preseason, with nothing overly complicated at the end of the day, and not a whole ton of forced turnovers. I mean, they only forced 6 turnovers for Minnesota, so this wasn't the Jazz game the first week of the season where the Suns piled it on because they were just turning defense into offense like crazy. This was just 2 magnificent offensive players at the peak of their powers, making the right play time and again, getting into space looking for their shot, getting to their spots, and reining in bucket after bucket after bucket in a way that Minnesota, the number 1 ranked defense in the NBA, just could not keep up with. Let's pivot to the defense, because that's actually my biggest takeaway of the game, particularly the way in which the Phoenix Suns squelched out Anthony Edwards' scoring tonight. We'll dive into how they did that and why it was so impressive next. First, today's show brought to you by Betterhelp. Betterhelp is changing the game in something that is maybe the most important of any way that you could treat yourself or start to poke around at a new type of service to spend your money on. It's the end of the year. It's the holiday season. Here in Phoenix, we kind of have the opposite of seasonal, but it's stressful. If you live outside of the valley, the weather keeps you indoors. It's dreary. It's dark. And there's a lot of family time, which isn't always good for everybody. This time of year can be a lot, but adding something new and positive can counteract some of that. Therapy can be a bright spot amid all the stress and change, something to look forward to, make you feel grounded, give you the tools to manage what you have going on. I feel like it was winter. I feel like it was January, February when I first tried therapy out and did it online myself at first because it felt easier, felt more accessible, it felt more flexible, and it was. And most of all with Betterhelp, if you're thinking of starting it, give Betterhelp a try. Let them be the people to get you started with therapy. They are entirely online, flexible, convenient, all those good things. You fill out a brief questionnaire, you get matched with a licensed therapist that can help you. But the part I was getting at that's the most cool to me, you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. So if you don't like or don't really vibe with the first one, no problem, no sweat. You can keep cycling through until you get the match for the person that's going to help you. Find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA for 10% off your first month. Today's show also brought to you by the Gametime app, the best place to buy a ticket for any event that you could possibly want. Another thing that is incredibly common in this time of year, whether it's concerts, holiday shows, different events around the valley. There is a lot going on. In addition to the NBA season, you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets. Gametime is fast and easy. Killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. My two favorite things about Gametime, the all-in prices, so you can see exactly what you're paying. Not, this is the base price, and then, oh, look, it's double that once you actually go to checkout. No, they show you it all. And the views from your seat, which is something that you can see from within their app, a snapshot of what exactly your view will be when you go to the event and sit in the seat that you're paying for. Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind. See that seat view. All-in prices up front. Buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. Again, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download their app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, let's keep it rolling here. The Phoenix Suns come away with the victory, 133-115. Want to remind you guys, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you, 24/7, covering the top stories in the day with the local experts, plus national shows covering every league. Want to also plug one more time the Locked On Suns Insider Text Alerts. The link is in the show notes. Click it or go to subtext.com/LockedOnSuns. You will get my immediate insight and perspective and opinion on every single Suns piece of news and rumor. You will get exclusive video breakdowns that I upload to YouTube and list as private and send directly to you. And you will get my observations from Footprint Center and the Verizon 5G practice facility of anything I see and hear on game days or practice days that I might not share on the podcast. If that sounds like something you would like, if you like what you get on the show and you want more content in the moment, that's where you need to go. Click that link in the show notes or go to subtext.com/LockedOnSuns. Let's get to my big takeaway of the game, which is the defense, and specifically the defense on up-and-coming scoring guard Anthony Edwards. The Minnesota Timberwolves rubric, blueprint, template this season has been defense plus Edwards. It works well. We've seen it work for a number of teams over the years. You know, it's the 2000 Philadelphia 76ers, Allen Iverson and Dikembe Mutombo and all the rest, right? It works. But when you take the Edwards part away, that's what allows you to beat them by 18. And the Suns did that at a very high level tonight. But even beyond that, it was also an example of what Vogel wants to do defensively and the way that the Suns do have the potential to execute it. They allowed 54 points in the first half and 61 in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter. Different guys started to pile on. So I look at those first three quarters, and if you're going to only allow 82 points in the first three quarters of an NBA game, you're giving yourself a pretty good chance to win that game. But specifically back to Edwards. What we saw against him that is indicative of what Vogel wants to do was first send 2 to the ball every time Edwards came off of a screen outside the arc, right? So what does that mean? Whoever's guarding Edwards is going to fight over that screen. Whoever is guarding the screener is going to hedge out, basically blockade the driving lane between him and the basket, and either force the ball out of his hands, force him into a contested pull-up jumper, or force him to dribble into traffic, weave around, dribble the air out of the ball and overthink things, right? Get out of rhythm, basically. And they did that to a T. But on the back end of that, you also saw some things that show the aggressive help and paint removal that Vogel wants to instill. The strong side three-point shooter, and I don't know if this was the game plan necessarily, but there were times when the strong side helper was messing with Edwards' flight path a little bit. But especially you saw the weak side collapse inward. Guys who were planting themselves at the basket before Edwards even got downhill. And, think of it like what we saw them do against LeBron James and the Lakers last Friday when Reddish got those open threes at the end of the game. Nurkic is theoretically guarding Reddish on those plays, quote-unquote guarding, right? Not really. He's just standing at the basket, ready to be a last line of defense against a potential drive by LeBron, and that just leaves Reddish wide open. It wasn't so overt tonight because, one, Gobert is often on the court, and so you don't have to send such extreme help from a shooter. You can send help from Gobert because he's in the dunker spot or he's the screener. But even if it was from the weak side corner shooter, they were pretty aggressive. Maybe not Nurkic against Reddish levels, but they were aggressive. And then, very depending on how strong of a shooter the other guys spacing the floor might have been, including, again, that strong side, the Suns were just collapsing into the paint. It wasn't uncommon to have two guys hedged out against Edwards, sending 2 to the ball, as I said, somebody over-helping, already standing at the rim, and multiple long, aggressive helpers ready to swipe at him as he drove, if he drove. You add all of that up, and he finishes the night with a 4 of 16 shooting performance. Granted, and honestly, hats off to Anthony Edwards for only turning the ball over once. That might be the most impressive thing you could say about him tonight. I mean, that's not hard to do, considering that he didn't shoot well, but you'd think those all would kind of go hand in hand, right? Not a lot of three-pointers to be had because the defense was so tight on him. A lot of missed shots, and then you would usually think, and a bunch of turnovers. In that case, no. So I guess there's one positive for Ant, but the Suns' ability to execute that with Okogie not starting this game and only playing 19 minutes, Goodwin only playing 16 minutes, you're talking about a lot of moments where it was Grayson Allen guarding Ant, or times where they were targeting Kevin Durant on switches, trying to get Ant in space to attack Durant, and that didn't work. The personnel was offensively oriented tonight in order to attack Towns' defense, as I mentioned a little bit in the first segment, to attack the Gobert drop, etc., all the stuff I said already. and they still executed this defensive performance and kept Edwards quiet. But where I want to close is Durant on the topic of the defense. I just thought he was incredible all night. He had a block against Gobert. He had, I believe, 3 deflections that I could count. Didn't get any steals technically, but I think 3 deflections is where I had him. And he had at least 2 or 3 stops in isolation, one-on-one against Ant as well. You know, you add all of that up, and that's like a number of forced turnovers, a number of stops. You're getting close to, 7, 8, 9, 10 defensive plays made by Kevin Durant in just this game, on top of the amazing offensive night that I already described. Very strong game from the Phoenix Suns on the defensive end of the court, and I think it's definitely something to build on. And it has to make you feel good that even when Beal gets back, it's going to keep up because, again, this was a game where the Suns played their offensive guys, and they still did this because their best players made plays and they executed a scheme. Let's close out with the box score oddity, the young forward breakout watch, and the Phoenix Suns pre-take. First, today's show brought to you by Prize Picks, who have come in and fixed daily fantasy sport. They are the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America, and we love them here at the Locked On Podcast Network, especially around basketball season, because Prize Picks is up and running with their Specials League. Their Specials League means that you can combine different leagues, different sports in one lineup. All right? For example, you can go LeBron James plus Travis Kelce at a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made plus receptions, and then all you have to do is pick more or less. That's all that you do at Prize Picks. There's no pool, no league, no head-to-head matchup. It is just you versus the Prize Picks player projections, making it very simple to play, quick withdrawals, and an enormous selection of players and stat types to get you the lineup that you want to make. All of that, again, makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. So take advantage, play it, have some fun, and get a Prize Picks deposit match when you go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA or use the code LockedOnNBA. Again, a first deposit match up to $100, meaning if you deposit $100, Prize Picks matches that right back into your account. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. Let's keep the show rolling. I'm going to get the light to focus a little bit better on me for the YouTube audience if I can. Young forward breakout watch. And at this point, we're including Goodwin and Okogie in the breakout watch because right now they're the only ones playing, which was one of the interesting side plots of this game, is that we had only 10 or so minutes for Keita Bates-Diop and 0, of course, for Nasir Little, who has not been in the rotation in a while. The Suns played small in this game. I mentioned it with Eric Gordon. I mentioned it with Grayson Allen. I mentioned it with Devin Booker. They wanted to put their offensive guys out there, and it worked. Still, I think Josh Okogie played a very solid basketball game. Frank Vogel is going to turn into a broken record, I think, talking about how Okogie's offense can't just be measured from how many threes he makes. And I think he's saying that to reporters and media because he wants Okogie to know that, and I'm sure he's saying the same thing to Josh. He wants him to attack closeouts, get to the free throw line, crash the offensive glass, turn into a dribble handoff distributor. The Draymond Green, Bam Adebayo special, where if you're not a shooter and you catch a kick out, you can be immediately turning that into a dribble handoff for the wing floor spacer who's next to you. All these other ways that Okogie is expected to and asked to contribute as an offensive guy, even if the shot is not going in. Vogel wants Okogie to be a low-volume, high-efficiency three-point player this year. He did that tonight. 3 of 3 from deep. He made his first 2 right when he checked in and was away, kind of off to the races. Jordan Goodwin, I thought, played a little bit of a different game. They used him as a screener to set up certain mismatches. He had a nice kick out to Kevin Durant on, I believe, a pin down play for 3, and maybe even a pin down play for 2 as well. I thought they both settled into a nice offensive rhythm tonight. Keita Bates-Diop had one late clock finish where he attacked a closeout. It seems like it's going to be a little bit of a work in progress for him as his role fluctuates. It's not ideal, but the Suns are still figuring things out. Maybe when Beal comes back, you want to give some of the bench minutes more to a Bates-Diop over Jordan Goodwin, for instance, but time will tell. Box score oddity, I kind of covered it already. The real one to me is just the turnovers. I think the fact that these are both, in the case of Minnesota, they had the defensive pedigree coming in as the number 1 defense in the NBA. In the case of the Suns, executed their game plan really well, like I was talking through with the Anthony Edwards thing in the last segment. And these two teams combined for just 15 turnovers. That's pretty impressive. The other one would just be 3-pointers. The Suns made 17. I mentioned Okogie just now, making his 3. That goes a long way. Eubanks made a corner 3. Like, you take those out. Let's just say Okogie goes 0 for 3. Eubanks misses that corner 3 he takes. Suddenly, the Suns are, 13 of 31, and maybe the game feels a little different. Minnesota shot just 5 of 27. But the other very interesting one that Frank Vogel actually pointed out post-game that he said the coaching staff was laughing about because it just was so silly is the Suns were listed as having 0 fast break points. Now, because Minnesota only turned the ball over 6 times, I think that's where you might see it. But the statisticians gave the Suns 15 points off turnovers. So just a funny little thing where the way things were counted, the Suns got 15 points off turnovers, very much felt in flow offensively all night, and did make a point of emphasis of getting downhill early in the clock, especially in the first and second quarters, and yet got 0 fast break points. Just a little bit funny. Let's close on this. I don't have a ton of analysis or perspective to add because I'm not a doctor. I'm not on the Phoenix Suns training staff, and I'm just as exhausted by it as all of you guys. But if we're going to do a Phoenix Suns pre-take tonight, which is where I guess what Stephen A. Smith or Colin Cowherd or even Zach Lowe might be talking about tomorrow when it comes to the Phoenix Suns, it's Bradley Beal, and whether this back situation is something to be worried about down the line. I personally am not there yet. I'm not at panic. I'm not at this is going to be an 82-game problem yet. I think actually the fact that he didn't play today feels smart. There's no need. I mean, it's a home game. Sure, it's Booker's return. You want to have it all come together, but he woke up with tightness, according to Vogel. Went through shoot around a little bit, tried things out, wanted to go through a pregame workout as usual, warm up to see how that helped, if it loosened things, if things started to feel less sore. By game time that he would play, and it didn't happen, so he didn't play. I guess it depends on what you mean by panic, right? I'm not there in terms of this is going to plague him all year, and we shouldn't expect a good season from Beal now. I don't think we know enough to say that. I don't think anybody knows enough to say that. If the question is, will we have to worry about Beal's availability for the Suns all season? Will he miss games here and there as a result of this? And if that's what I'm worried, that's what you're asking me, yes. I mean, I think it will. I said that from the minute that we knew it was a back problem. That's not something that you just snap your fingers or sleep off. Like, these are not, it's not even really like an injury at a certain point, right? It's muscle spasms. It's muscle, like, I mean, I don't know the scientific words for it, but if you have chronic muscle reactions at a part of your body, and you're a professional athlete who's trying to push those muscles and that body to the brink every night, of course it's going to linger. So, road against the Jazz is not exactly a difficult environment, I think, to bring somebody back in, especially considering Beal's not, it is at altitude, but he's not coming off of weeks and weeks out. He's just missed this one game, so he very well could be back on Friday for the in-season tournament or Sunday for the other one. We'll see. But that's what people are going to be talking about. Is this injury stuff going to plague the Suns all year? Did they make the wrong trade? I mean, I don't know if we're there with all of it already, but I guarantee you the in and out nature of Beal's availability lately is going to raise some eyebrows. That will wrap the show up. Don't forget to hit subscribe to the Locked On Suns Insider Text Alerts. That link is in the show description, or it's at subtext.com/LockedOnSuns, and follow on TikTok for day-to-day instant reaction in video form on all things Suns. Catch all that content. Hit subscribe here to get one more show this week with Aaron Edwards, and I will catch you guys tomorrow.